Russia is marking its biggest national holiday. Victory Day celebrates the defeat of Nazi Germany during the Second World War. It is usually a patriotic spectacle showing off Russia's military strength and power. But this year things look very different with the scaled-back parade in Red Square. There is no dazzling display of military hardware in the Moscow parade for the first time in nearly 2 decades. There are also fewer foreign leaders than in previous years, and most international press have been barred from the event because of heightened security concerns. Ahead of the celebrations, Russia and Ukraine agreed to a 3-day ceasefire and to swap 1,000 prisoners each. That was announced by U.S. President Donald Trump. The CBC's Julia Chapman is covering this story for us this morning from London. Julia, let's start with this year's Victory Day celebrations, looking very different this time around.
Yeah, that's right, Marianne. Victory Day celebrations in Moscow are really Russia's annual projection of power, both to a domestic audience, but also internationally. And it is a really major national holiday in Russia. For many Russians, the highlight for the past few years has been the military hardware going through central Moscow onto red squares, the tanks, the ballistic missiles being shown to the nation and the world. Those were absent this year because the authorities say there was a terrorist threat from Ukraine. Ukrainian drones have been reaching further, deeper into Russia. They've become more accurate as the course of the war has gone on. And so there has been a nervousness in Moscow that the proceedings today could have been affected. There's been really high security. There have been really severe restrictions on internet usage in Moscow and in St. Petersburg. Despite all of those jitters, President Vladimir Putin was still pretty combative in his speech on Red Square. He said that Russia will be victorious, and he said that Russian soldiers are resisting what he called an aggressive force backed by NATO.
Let's talk more about the ceasefire. As we mentioned, it is now in place, a 3-day ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Is there a chance that it could last even longer?
Well, Donald Trump, when he announced this ceasefire, certainly expressed a hope that it could be what he called the beginning of the end of the war. And Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, always says that any of these ceasefires that we have seen from time to time during the war in Ukraine should be open-ended. They should pave the way for peace negotiations. That hasn't been the language coming out of the Kremlin today. Yuri Ushakov, a Kremlin aide, said that this will just be 3 days. He was really echoing the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, who earlier said that there is still a very long way to go before any peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine, despite what he said was the Americans being in a hurry to strike a peace deal. Most Kremlin watchers would agree that Vladimir Putin will end this conflict when he sees a benefit in doing so. And despite the security concerns that Russia has had in the past week and more broadly, there doesn't seem to be any suggestion that it would be in Vladimir Putin's interest to end this conflict just yet.
Thanks so much for this, Julia. The CBC's Julia Chapman reporting in London. So where do things stand right now between Russia and Ukraine? Michael Bosserque is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and the founder of the World Briefing Report on Substack. He joins us this morning from Moldova's capital. Michael, thanks so much for talking to us this morning.
Good to be with you.
So there's the Victory Day parade. We saw the images of that, much more scaled back. What goes through your mind when you see what it looks like this year compared to previous years?
Yeah, well, first of all, the reason I'm talking to you from Chisinau, Moldova, and not Odessa, my usual base, is because I had to evacuate from Odessa. It's just become way too safe. So we're watching it from here. But this clearly reflects a humiliated Mr. Putin. The war is not going well. They've lost, a lot of men, a lot of equipment. However, they still have the wherewithal to pound Ukrainian cities and towns and villages, nuclear power plants, you name it. But it's amazing, is it not, that the Ukrainians have managed to instill that much fear in Mr. Putin, as your correspondent pointed out, that he can't even spend a night, reportedly, in his own residences. So, and finally on this one, the war is hitting the average Russian now more than it ever has, especially in Moscow, where a lot of the elites live.
Let's talk about this ceasefire. A 3-day ceasefire brokered by the U.S. between the two countries. It also includes that 1,000 prisoner swap on each side. What do you make of the terms of this ceasefire? Do you think it could last potentially longer?
The prisoner swap is a very good one because I've watched myself, mothers and kids, in Maidan Square in Kiev, protest that their loved ones are missing or been away for too long. But look, even though this has the fingerprints of Mr. Trump, look, I've just returned from Armenia, and I can tell you the so-called peace deal there between Armenia and Azerbaijan is hardly keeping together. Same thing on the Thai-Cambodia border. I think the Russians will do what they normally do, Miriam, is they'll stretch this out as long as possible, war of attrition, wear the Ukrainians down. And, we talk a lot, do we not, about the resilience, the fighting spirit of the Ukrainian people. But I can tell you, walking the streets of Odessa day in and day out, it's becoming very, very difficult on the average Ukrainian. All of them are asking when the war can end because it's become very, very difficult for them to bear any longer. When you describe that uncertainty and in some cases hopelessness for those who are living this every single day, then to watch what's unfolding here with this ceasefire, with both sides accusing each other of violating the terms of this ceasefire, how much more do you think the Ukrainian people, for instance, can handle the uncertainty? Yeah, well, look, tomorrow I'm on my way to Edmonton to give 2 keynotes, one in Edmonton and one in Calgary. My main message there to decision makers and to the Ukrainian diaspora community that has helped Ukraine so much in this battle is to keep on supporting Ukraine, give it what it needs. But at the same time, I'm very, very worried about the demographic displacement, about the closure of small businesses, about people leaving. It's any economy in the world that is subject to such pressures, including fuel price hikes from the Iran war, would eventually start to not to bend, but to really feel pressures and show it. So something needs to be done to alleviate that pressure because I think we're nearing that point where it's going to be very, very difficult to return Ukraine back to where it was. But on a final point, no way can any Ukrainian president give away territory as the Russians are demanding or sign on to some of their other maximalist demands. So countries like Canada really need to support Ukraine to get it through this difficult period.